congregation, I want to do these things because I love God and I don't want to offend Him. Right? That's a different mentality. And if we do catechesis well that way, then I think fewer kids are going to walk away from the church. Right? But we have to be compelling, and that means we've got to live that way too. I have to live the rubrics, the moral conditions that the church puts on me with joy. I can't be grouchy about it because then I'm not this authentic witness. Okay, so I want to give you guys 15 minutes for questions. I laid a whole lot out on you. There was nodding and there was some confusion. So what are your questions? What do you want to know more? Yes, thank you, Jen.
Thank you for putting this statement at the top, Catholics are separated from one another. So, in my church, someone told the priest that, the priest already knew, but anyway. So the church minister is divorced, and so this person said, well, she can't receive communion, which of course is not true.
Right.
But when someone says something so specific, well, look, how would you respond? I have to dig deep to be kind, but it's like, I'd be interested in how you would respond to, why are you giving her communion if she's divorced?
So the person asked this of a priest?
Yes.
Hold
I'm here to just welcome everybody to the diocese.
I already did. Okay, no,
I can tell you what the priest said, so it's interesting, because that must be Father Kramer.
Yeah.
Because, the response.
It wasn't me, right?
I think Father Kramer said. Right.
So the response of a priest might indeed be different than what our response is. Because this was after Mass, when we were greeting people. And he thanked the person for their concern and assured her that the church minister was just fine. Period. It's like, this is not the time or place to talk about that situation. But it is a point of education, because I actually get this a lot. People not realizing that Catholics who are separated or divorced are in full communion. They experience no disabilities. They can be a confirmation sponsor. They can be a teacher. They can be the choir director. So there are no disabilities, no penalty. So as a canon lawyer said, there's no penalties for a failed marriage.
Right.
So,
Right.
but how would we say?
To respond to that, I don't know what prompted this, but just last week in our parish bulletin, our priest, has his message for the congregation, and he was very specific, and perhaps it was prompted by something like that. We're not the same parish, obviously, but he explained very, in no uncertain terms, the differences between divorced Catholics, divorced and remarried Catholics, encouraging annulment, whatever. But it was very catechetical in that.
Right.
And so that's a way to spread it out to the entire community, because if this person is thinking this, there's a good chance that
Right.
half the other
Right.
congregation is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a priest. Obviously. So I couldn't answer what I think a priest should answer. As a person of trying to live my faith, I would say thank you for your concern in honoring the sacrament of the Eucharist.
Mm-hmm.
And I would leave it at that. I wouldn't put any more caveats on it. Because the next question is, I don't know this person's life story. I don't know if they were remarried and haven't had a marriage for me, if I could go any further than that, I go dangerously close to gossip.
So that's a great line. I think I would be inclined to share this informational statement.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. But if somebody calls me out on something like that, I always try to just answer with, I'm so glad that you take the reception of the sacraments so seriously.
Yeah.
Because any farther than that, you're going to either invite them to gossip, because conversations like this are invitations to gossip, right? They're making a judgment, and you don't want to jump into that because gossip is a mucky, place to go. Please.
Usually, usually those, when I've heard those comments, because I've heard them.
Sure,
When I've heard those comments, usually they're born out of ignorance rather than malice.
Absolutely.
And and the reason I say that is because for me, that's where I start to dig deep. Is I recognize that it's more ignorance than malice, right? Than harm or gossip or something. So, and most of the time, those comments originate with somebody's mother who told somebody at some point in time that this was what the church says, you know, or this is what they shouldn't do, or whatever. Rather than actually understanding what the church teaches, you know, in being disposed to receive the sacraments. I have found particularly helpful what you just said about your respect for the Eucharist, you know, and in the dignity of the sacrament. What I have found particularly helpful in Pope Francis's exhortation Amoris Laetitia, and people just jump to chapter 8. They don't look at the rest of it. But in one of the beginning chapters of it, he's talking about worthiness to receive communion. Now, the church has talked about worthiness to receive communion for a long time with regard to divorce and remarriage. But he goes back to the biblical injunction of St. Paul about the worthiness to receive communion. If you have something against your brother, or if you're committing scandal, you know, then you're not, you know, then there's not a worthiness. So I think there's a sense in which he's calling us to a greater scrutiny of our souls. And that in fact, in a very real sense, more people should be sitting in their pews than getting up. I mean, more people in what we might say are regular relationships should be sitting in the pew, examining their consciences before they go to confess, you know, and then go to the sacrament of reconciliation. And so I would say maybe it's an opportunity for us to say, it's not just this issue, but there are other matters that are matters of grave sin that we need to take into consideration. Unchastity in marriage, by the way, is something that is a grave sin and should prevent us from going forward. But anyway, that's just...
Well, I was just going to say, I had learned just not that long ago that not in our lifetime, but in the lifetime before, not everyone went to communion. It was just normal to not go. The obligation is to go to Sunday Mass, not to go to Sunday communion. And it was considered rash to go every time. And so there was an atheist on Catholics Come Home who came back after 50 years, and she was shocked that everybody went up to communion and not just a few. Yeah,
this is, if I may just clarify that this is also a cultural thing. I mean, I find that among Anglos in particular, when I'm celebrating Mass, you know, at a church, and it's predominantly Anglo-Americans, everybody comes up as if it's a right, you know, to receive, and you know, by God, don't deny me, and only those sinners sit in the back who don't get up, right? But I see a different kind of reverence among Africans from Africa and Hispanics, where when you go to their parishes, not everybody goes. In fact, a lot of people stay in the pews just simply out of reverence for the Eucharist, knowing the real presence of Jesus. There's something to learn there.
I just want to point out that sometimes you get questions like that about the divorced from older people. I mean, I was a child of divorce. My mother was barred from the sacraments until after Vatican II, just because she was divorced. She wasn't remarried. So that what we have now is a different teaching from people that are older.
Right. I want to go back to your statement. I thought that was super interesting. So in the bulletin that you just listed out.
Yeah, he just as a topic, you know, and just explained everything kind of, and you know,
so
encouraged annulment. I mean, it was done very tastefully and very catechetical. But I don't know what prompted that. Perhaps it was something like that.
I would love to see then, like if I were in that parish, you know, would I look at that list carefully and say, is there someone who is being welcome here or needs to?
Okay.
You know, am I being called? Is there someone in my life that I know, not that my mother, somebody, cousin, brother told me, that I should engage in a conversation, right? So for me as a catechist or an evangelist, am I going to look at that list, which is now super clearly articulated, and on the heart of the pastor, can I somehow help engage in that mission? Is there somebody I can accompany? Can I welcome? Can I encourage to consider an enrollment? I see it not only as a moment for catechesis, but then for me, even if I'm not a formal catechist, to perhaps jump in and begin the conversation so that they can rebuild their relationship with the church. Others, that was pretty good. Yep.
So,
So,
how do you initiate prayer with someone? How do you initiate prayer with someone?
this is funny. I spent last spring like 8 days in Catholic school spending 2 hours on spontaneous prayer. Okay. Isn't that kind of funny? Like, we're going to spend 2 hours practicing spontaneous prayer. All spontaneity is gone. Okay? Things I want to say before I tell you how I would pray. Sometimes the beauty of our liturgical prayers make us think that our prayers have to be beautiful and poetic and say everything. It is not that. Sometimes if we just say thank you, God, actually that is a beautiful prayer. And sometimes we just forget to say thank you, God, right? I lead too often in, oh God, I need, or please help, as opposed to just starting with thank you. So anytime I would start to pray with anybody, I start with thank you.
I
Thank you.
missed that.
Any prayer I start with someone who, is always thank you, God.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for the fact that I'm here today and that I get to spend the morning with you, right? Thank you that the sun's shining. It doesn't have to be big and beautiful. The other thing I would say is if someone says, please pray for me, do it right then, don't say I will. Someone says, please pray for me. This is hard. Let's do it right now. Right now. You know what? And I'm going to say I learned that beautiful tradition from the African American parishes in the Archdiocese of Washington because, shocking, I'm a white woman, right? That would not have been in my comfort zone. But they do that without hesitation. Someone says, please pray for me. They grab their hand and pray for them right then and there. Just sometimes for people to know that you are willing to say, you're in my heart, And then, you know what, it is also, I will guarantee you that when I pause to do that, I am much more faithful about praying for them in the future because I remember the moment. It's not just the request, I remember the moment because the moment changed me, so I'm much better about continuing to intercede on their behalf. But I also say it doesn't have to be beautiful. And I'm also going to say that if you cry when you're praying, that's okay too. You might not, but I do. But that means I'm trying to really journey with them and I'm feeling their pain, right? Others? It's been my great good pleasure to be here with you all. I hope you have a wonderful conference.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah, for taking your time out of your, one of your little time off. Because even when you're supposed to be off, you're probably still doing work. But anyway, thank you. And you should be given a